Here's a video to walk you through how to deploy a Resware Operations Manager access role in Ops Insights. So to do this, you'll have to be logged in as a client admin user. And I've done so here. I've logged in as a client admin user for our Resware demo account. Upon logging in, you'll be taken to your dashboard, and to complete the Operations Manager role deployment, we'll need to head over to the Access Roles section of Ops Insights. And once we've arrived here, we want to take a quick break or pause to outline some of the criteria values that you will need before deploying this Operations Manager access role. And it's also important to note out we'll be using our templated role, which is a collection of reports that have been created or assembled by our Ops Insights team. That basically what we did is we went through our report library, our library of Resware-based reports, and we assembled some reports that we thought an operations manager using a Resware title production system may find useful. So when we actually get into deploying this role, we'll walk you through adding or removing reports, but just want to call out some of the criteria values that you will need before starting this process. Now, you can, by all means, you can go through and just kind of select them at a whim when you're deploying this, but it makes more sense to go through research and find these default values before deploying this access role. So the first grouping of criteria that you'll need is going to be some disbursement revenue criteria values. Now these will be used to inform you revenue that some of your lost clients or some of your referral agents have generated. So this is used to inform you how much revenue you've either lost business from or how much revenue a referral agent has sent your company. So we'll need the name of the partner company that revenue is dispersed to. And again, revenue disbursements can be found in the settlement postings tab, and that'll be in the disbursement section. So revenue is dispersed to a specific transactee partner company. You also need to know the method that you are dispersing. So that's going to be check, wire, or sometimes a transfer, depending on how your Resware is set up. Above and beyond that, we'll need to know a few status values as well. So the file status values. We'll need to know what status values are assigned to a file when it's been canceled, what status values are assigned to a file when it's considered to be closed, what status values are assigned to a file when it's considered to be a trouble file. And then we'll also need to know what status values are assigned to a file when it is considered to be eligible for production. We'll also need to know what action or actions that do the users in your system complete when a file has been considered to be closed. We'll also need to know a few partner types as well. We'll need to know the names of the listing and selling agent partner types that you use in your system. We'll need to know what partner type is assigned to the file when you're tracking sales reps. And then finally, we'll need to know which partner type do you want to use for our optional partner type reports. So we have a handful or a collection of reports that will show you orders, actual settlements, and signings, and they will actually group it or break it down by a specific partner type. So this is useful if you're wanting to track information by a branch, if you're wanting to track information by a specific sales rep, so on and so forth. You can just select whatever partner type that you'd like when you're running the report, and you can see a distribution of those specific partners that are attached to the file. So once we have all of this information, and again, all of this will be listed in the client documentation site in the access roles section of Ops Insights, but just wanted to call it out before we get started because this is very important to note. And again, you can kind of just click through and figure this out when you're doing it, but it's definitely recommended to make sure that you have the correct values before starting this process. So now that that's out of the way, we actually will go through and configure and deploy an operations manager access role in Ops Insights. So to do this, we're just going to click on New Access Role. And again, we're going to use our templated role. And we're just going to search for Operations Manager here, and there it is. We're just going to click on Create Templated Role. So here, we are going to give this a unique name. That's one of the requirements when we're deploying roles in Ops Insights. I believe Operations Manager already exists in this demo account, so we're just going to show demo here. We're just going to type in demo so that we can kind of move past this. Some important things to call out or note: role type. There's two types, internal or external. Internal roles are for internal users. External roles are for external users. If you need more clarification on that, certainly check our client doc site, or you can reach out to our support team, support@opsinsights.com. But an operation manager is going to be an internal or someone that works for your company. So we'll just leave the default internal value selected. From there, we can give it a unique description. So for instance, if you were wanting to deploy a role for a specific branch or a specific office at your company, we could do that. And we can just denote that here in the description as well as the name. So we would want to do something like operations manager dash office name, operations manager dash branch name, so on and so forth. From there, we'll complete the step, and then will be shown or displayed a list of all of the internal users that are in your account, since we selected an internal role type. And then here we'll just need to go through and look through our users section and figure out which users we want to assign to this particular role. And again, just as a quick overview, this is how reports are assigned to users in Ops Insights. So reports are assigned to an access role, and then an access role is assigned to a user. So whatever collection of reports that we have for this specific access role, we can quickly and easily add to another user or remove them from a user by updating the user assignment section here. So to select a user, we just toggle the switch from gray to blue, and that indicates that this particular user will be assigned to this access role. From there, we can continue on, and the next step is going to be our report selection step. And as I mentioned earlier, this is a templated role. So this is a curated list of reports from our Resware report library that we've assembled. So what we're going to do is we're just going to click on Show here, and we're going to toggle that selection from all reports to assign reports only. So when we do that, it's just going to show us all of the reports that are currently assigned to this particular access role. And again, since we selected a templated role, it's going to come prepackaged with these particular grouping of reports. From there, we can quickly and easily add or remove any report that we'd like. So for instance, if files with an effective date more than 30 days old is not something that you or your operations team is particularly concerned about, then we can just go in and update that selection. When you toggle it from blue to gray, that indicates that the report is not assigned to the access role. And when it's blue, that indicates that the report is currently selected. So we can look through this list and add or remove, change anything that we want here. But for demonstration purposes, we will keep everything that is currently assigned to this operations manager templated role. Furthermore, if you did have some additional custom reports that you have had our custom report writing service, our report writing team create for you, those will be listed in this listing as well. So you can actually search for them and find them and add them to this particular role as well when you're deploying it. So that's the great thing about this. When you're deploying a templated role, you have complete flexibility to add or include or remove reports that make sense for your company. So we know that all of our clients use Resware a little bit differently. So some reports may work for you out of the box, and you may have had some customized. This is where you can go in and remove those ones that don't necessarily work for you, and you can go in and select anything that we've customized for you as well. But for demonstration purposes, we're just going to proceed and move forward with all of the out-of-the-box Operations Manager templated role reports, and we're just going to continue on. So the standard criteria step, which is the current step that we're on, and the criteria lock-in step, they are a little bit different because they are custom to Ops Insights. I'm going to do a brief overview here. We do have a lot of videos and content that explains the standard criteria step and the criteria lock-in step in depth. But I'm just going to show you what you need to do in order to deploy an Operations Manager templated role in Ops Insights. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to select a date range. And again, in the standard criteria step, we are just selecting defaults for the role itself. We're not actually selecting criteria for the reports yet. That'll be done in the criteria lock-in step. We're just saying as a general rule of thumb, when a report is assigned to this particular role, these criteria values should be assigned to it. So the first thing that we're going to need to do is just select a date range. From there, as I mentioned at the top of the video, we are going to need to select default values for the disbursement revenue transactee. And to do this, we are just going to select in our demo account the names of transactees that disbursements are made payable to when they are considered to be revenue. So we've gone in and we've created some custom tailored partner names here, and we're just basically going to search for those. And we did an Office theme. If you're a fan of The Office, we basically just went through and created a couple of partners that are named after The Office. So we've got Athlete Sports Marketing, Dunder Mifflin Paper Company, Michael Scott Paper Company, and Sabre International. So these are the names of partners in our fictitious Resware demo environment here that disbursements are made payable to when they are considered to be revenue. And again, this information can be found in the postings tab, or the settlement/postings tab of the file, in the disbursement section. If you're not sure of the exact names, most likely someone that is actually oversees the disbursements or oversees the checks or wires for your company, they will be able to provide that information for you as well. One thing to note out here too, this is completely optional, but we can toggle this allow user to override selected value. We can toggle that to no, and when that is set to no, the user that is assigned to this particular grouping of reports will not be able to change our selections. So if you don't want the user that's assigned to be able to go in there and update the revenue values, then toggle this switch value to no. And again, we're not displaying a full revenue count with this particular access role. We're just basically using it, and I'll show you the grouping of reports in the next step, but we're basically using it to inform the assigned user of a few things. How much revenue has a client generated that is no longer sending you business? How much revenue has a particular referral agent or primary employee of that client? How much revenue have they sent your company that is no longer sending you business? And then we also have a primary employee report where, it basically just captures all of the files or all of the volume they've sent you in some time frame, and it breaks down the total amount of revenue that those partner employees have sent you as well. So it's basically just used to gauge, who do I need to go after to market to, and it allows you a good starting point of pick this person first because they've sent you the most revenue in some time frame. When we're not doing actual revenue counts, we actually have a templated role that is geared specifically for revenue, and whereas the operations manager role that we're deploying here is more production-based reports. So we're just going to select that. The next thing we'll need to do is revenue type. So revenue type is going to be pretty straightforward. It's just going to be disbursement. Select this every time. Since we created this standard criteria, we've actually gone in and updated a majority of our Resware-based reports to capture invoiced and dispersed revenue, but there are a handful of reports that will still need us to make a selection, and it just needs to be disbursement. From there, we need to do disbursement revenue method. So there are mainly 3 revenue disbursement methods that are actually used by companies. There's going to be check, transfer, or wire. So check is if you're actually going in and manually printing checks. Wire is you're wiring it from your accounts or between accounts, or transfers is you're transferring it, or you're doing sweep type of revenue generation. So depending on your setup, you'll need to make your selection. Check is typically the most common, so we'll just make a check selection here, and then we'll continue on. So all of the other criteria filtering options that you see here, there are a lot. None of these are actually used for the reports that are assigned to this specific access role. One thing to note here, I will show you a few options. If you are deploying a Resware Operations Manager role and you wanted to segment it by office, you can do that here. So if we don't make a selection for office, it's going to show you every file in Resware, regardless of the office that's assigned. So some of our clients are set up in a few different ways. Some of our clients have one office, and then they delineate the different branches or regions by partners attached to the file. And some of our clients are set up using a Resware office for each branch or region. And it doesn't really matter how you do it. The net effect is kind of the same. But the main thing here is if you want to segment this, and let's say, for instance, if we didn't make a selection here for Resware Office, these set of reports or this grouping of reports would be more for an executive type of individual where they need to have access or see files for the entire company, not necessarily for a specific Resware office. If you did want to segment it for a region or office, you can do that here and select your office name. We can just do that. And then something important to note too, if you are segmenting files here, you most likely will want to override or make sure that the user can't override your selections. So toggle that value to no, allow user to override selected value no, and then when they're assigned to it, they can't go in and let's say, for instance, this individual is responsible for Dunder Mifflin paper only. They can't go in. If this is set to no, they can't go in and change your selection and spy on Athlete Sports Marketing or Michael Scott Paper Company, so on and so forth. And if you did want to move forward with it, click lock in and continue on. We're not going to do that here. This will just be more of an executive type of setup where they see production for all of your offices. But just wanted to note that if you are interested in deploying this role for a particular user, then you want to make sure, or a particular user that works in a specific office, then that's one option to do that or segment the files. We can also do current file status. So one thing that is recommended here is to exclude canceled files. So that is completely your preference. To exclude canceled files from this particular access role, we would need to just essentially go in and select every file status with the exception of canceled or fall through. And again, these are just the default out of the box Resware status values. So you can update these or you can add more. So these selections may be a little bit different from what your Resware system displays. But the main takeaway is what we're going to try to do is basically select every single file status value that exists in the system with the exception of canceled or fall through. Now, doing this method can potentially be an issue, especially if you add file status values after the fact. So or if you rename your status values. So for instance, let's say we updated close to some other different name. If that does happen in your system, you would need to go in and update this access role to select a new name. And then the same thing too, if you do add additional status values, each value that you add, you would need to go in and update the role to include that new value as well. So just something to note, if you do plan on changing your status values, then probably not the best idea to lock in all of these. If your status values are pretty much set and you don't plan on making any changes, then it is recommended to do this just so that you can essentially toss out any canceled or fall through files when you're doing order counts, closing counts, that sort of thing. All right, now that we've selected default values for the current file status, the next thing is I want to show you quickly. I mentioned using the Resware Office for filtering files. Another option would be filtering files for a specific branch or region. So in this particular Resware Office, we do have a partner type called branch, and we could do it that way as well. So we could, and again, we would want to make sure that this says no, but we'll leave it as yes. Optional partner company, and then we just select the name of the partner that would be attached to the file as a branch partner. When we want to include those, we'll just do Scranton here, going with our office or continuing with our office theme. And then you can even go down to the primary employee level. So a lot of times our clients, this is how they assign a closer to the file. They basically add the primary employee as the branch partner or the closing office partner. We could do something like this as well. And then there we have operational production reports assigned to this role, but they will be locked down to only show files when Michael Scott is assigned to the file as the primary employee of the Scranton partner that's assigned to the file as the branch partner type. I know that's a mouthful, but this is kind of a different way to segment files based on region, closing office, processing office, that sort of thing. But since we're not going to do that with this particular one, we're just going to clear out our optional partner type. And then basically this is going to say that since these are all linked together, this is going to tell us that the linked criteria values have been updated, and we're just going to update and remove all of them. So we're essentially just resetting the selection. All right, we're done with the standard criteria step. And again, these are just default values for the role itself. When we click on complete standard criteria step, what happens next is we actually look through the reports that are selected in the report selection step, and we group them together by the criteria values that they share. So what we're doing in this criteria lock-in step is we're actually assigning criteria values to the reports themselves. But since instead of asking you to do this one report at a time for each selection in the report selection step, we just group them by the criteria values that they share. So for instance, and we call these common sets. So for instance, common set 1 has 8 reports assigned to it. So what we're going to do here is we're going to expand common set 1, and then we're just going to look through. We can look at the names of the reports that are listed here. It looks like these are order focused reports, basically displaying orders grouped by different metrics, and informing us how many orders we've received by a client, total, by a transaction type, by a specific state, the referral agents, so on and so forth. So these are just order focused reports. We're just going to look through and make sure our selections for the standard criteria are carried over. And again, if you have questions about common sets, standard criteria, this is explained in depth in other videos, other training tutorials and videos. And you can also reach out to our support team, support@opsinsights.com, if you have questions about how this works and what we're doing here. The purpose of this video is just to walk you through how to deploy an operations manager templated role. So in order to inform you in the quickest way possible, I'm going to spare you of explaining all of that in this particular video. But we're just going to look through the common sets, and there will be times when we will make a few changes. But the main thing is we're just going to expand. We're going to expand the view common set reports link. We're going to click on it, see which common set reports or which reports are assigned to the common set 2. And then we're just going to make our selections. We'll lock in for each common set. Now, there are going to be times, and this is where I mentioned that we need specific criteria filtering options for specific common sets, and then this is where that will come into play. So we actually need to pull in or go in and make those selections that we have hopefully sought out and identified those specific values. So the disbursement revenue transactee, revenue type, action to complete file. We'll look at these common set 3 reports, and these are going to be our recently lost reports. So recently lost clients, recently lost referral agents. This is basically showing you any client that has sent you an order within the past year, but they have not sent an order within the last 30 days. So this is a good marketing tool. And again, it's going to basically just outline the total amount of revenue that you've received, disbursement revenue, that is, that you've received from that specific client or referral agent, which is a primary employee of the client in Resware. It's going to spell out how much revenue you've received from them, the percentage of files that have actually closed that they've sent to you. And that's what the action to complete file is used for. We're just going to go in and we're going to search for disperse file here, and then we're just going to go with this one, disperse file, and we're going to continue on. No other changes really are needed. You see that was a report specific criteria filtering option. So in report specific, sometimes we add default values for the global level criteria, and other times we don't, depending on what the criteria is and how it works. So an action can vary from client to client. That's why we ask you to select it, and there's no default value that comes with it. And we're just going to continue on. And since these are all standard criteria, our previous selections will persist what we made in our previous standard criteria step. All right, we're going to continue on common set 4, and we're just going to kind of rinse and repeat here. There will be times when I will outline specific selections that you need to make, and I'll tell you when those need to be made. But for this particular common set, that's not the case. Let's see, common set number 6. So this particular common set, these are action-based reports, Resware actions completed by user. So something to call out here, we most likely want to, if you did make a current file status that excludes canceled and fallen through files, you most likely will want to clear your selections here, because obviously you're attempting to gauge historical production. And there's not really a time limit on when a file can be canceled. So for instance, if you've worked the file all the way up until the closing, and then you received a cancellation from the client, you want to make sure that you are capturing or seeing all of the work that went into that file up until that point. So we can capture all of those actions that were completed by those specific users, by making sure we have no value selected for current file status for action files. All right. And then we're just going to go through here, bank account balance. So the same thing holds true here. So bank account balance is just going to show you the balance of every single file. And it's going to show you a balance by the bank account that file is assigned to. So there can be what bank account the ledger is assigned to in the file. So we want to make sure that we include all files. So we want to make sure that we capture canceled or fallen through files there as well, because obviously those files can have balances as well. Okay. The next orders open the last 3 years. We're good to go. The next thing is going to be agent marketing report. So this one is going to look at the client that's assigned to the file. And then we're also going to look at the listing agent partner and the selling agent partner. And we're going to tell you if the selling agent is the client or if the listing agent is the client. Then we're going to tell you if they're not the client, then you probably need to reach out to them to market to them. So out of the box, Resware has listing agent and selling agent as those partner types. These may have been customized by your company. If that is the case, you can go in and select different partners by clicking on it and selecting the name of the partner that you currently use for listing agent or selling agent. And additionally, we do have a sales rep partner type as here as well. So if you use something different than sales rep, if you've renamed the sales rep partner type to marketer, or account manager or anything along those lines, or if you've created a new one that tracks sales reps, this is where you would make that selection as well. But we're going to continue on with our out of the box stuff. The next one is going to be dormant reports. So dormant reports are just going to show you any file that is currently in an open state that has not had an action completed on it within a certain time frame. So this defaults to 90 days, but we can go in and make a selection to something different. So we can do, if a file hasn't received an action within the past year, calendar year, and this is where we'll want to override some of these selections. So obviously, in the standard criteria step, we selected every single status with the exception of closed or canceled files, rather. But so when we're tracking dormant files, we want to remove anything that signifies that the file has also been closed. So we're just basically looking for anything that indicates a file is eligible for processing, but has not received an action in it within some time frame. So we want to remove any canceled and any closed file status values, and just pick up those file statuses that are used to signify that a file is eligible for production. Depending on how you use hold, you may want to remove hold as well, but that's completely up to how your company uses status values in Resware. All right, and then we will continue on. The next common set is going to be referral agent assessment. So this is going to show you the total orders to the client primary employee has sent you in some time frame. And then this is going to be the same thing here, where we are just basically going to look for an action to complete the file. And we'll do that here, disperse file. And we're going to need to know what status values are assigned to the file when it's considered to be closed, what status values are assigned to the file when it's considered to be canceled. Because something that this report does is it looks through all of the orders and it shows you how many have closed, how many have been canceled or fallen through, and how many are currently open. So you can kind of see of the files that this primary employee or referral agent, as we call them, have sent you, how many have actually closed, how much revenue have you generated on those files, and how many have been canceled. So are they sending you bad deals or anything like that? You can kind of see over the past 6 months, and you can change this as well. So any order received from a trailing 6 months or 6 months from the current date, how many of those files have been opened, how many have closed, how many have canceled, and what revenue have you generated from those files. So it's a good place to figure out, who do you need to be marketing to, who's your top client, that sort of thing. And then finally, we are kind of getting towards the end here. We're going to look at common set 12, trouble files. This is where I mentioned we'll need a file status value to assign that are used to assign or indicate trouble files. Here we use the out-of-the-box trouble high, trouble low, and trouble medium file status value to achieve that. You may have something different, or you may not assign or attach or consider files to be in trouble using a file status. Some of our clients rename these to something more appropriate to their business processes and procedures. So if that is the case and you do not designate a file as being in trouble using a file status, then you can, when you're doing the report selection step, you can just remove that. But we will just basically show you a count of any file that is currently assigned to these particular file status values. All right, common set 13. This is going to be, looks like a shipping level. Yep, shipping costs report. Here, when we're tracking costs, we'll remove any status values, because even if a file has been canceled or fallen through, we want to make sure we capture any cost that file has incurred for shipping. The next common set of reports is going to be those by partner type reports I mentioned earlier. So scheduled signings by a specific partner type. So if you leave it at client, it's going to show you the scheduled signings by every client and using the scheduled signing date range. But we can go in and select anything. Scheduled signings by branch, we could do that and continue on. I'll kind of show you different options here. We have order percentage by partner type. So this is going to show you any order received in some time frame. If you leave it as default, it will be by client. But let's say, for instance, you were looking to see by closing attorney, we can do that as well. So it's just basically what partners mean the most or most significant to whatever time frame or interval we're trying to capture. Actual settlement date. So let's say, for instance, we want to see actual settlements by closing. I think we've got it. Closing office. Yep, perfect. We got that. And then the final one, let's see, it looks like this is the shipping cost report drill down. So we'll just go through and clear this out. And again, if you want to custom tailor this, you can review every single criteria filtering option and make selections that you'd like. Just kind of showing you the meat and potatoes, or the fast and easy. Hey, here are some best practices, things to do when deploying an operations manager in Ops Insights, and using the Resware Operations Manager templated role. Here are some suggested or best practices for selections to make sure that everything works for you and you're getting the most out of your reports. So once we've done that, we'll click on Complete Standard Criteria, and we are done. So this video did take a little bit of time to explain everything. Once you get into the hang of it and you are able to find those default criteria values that I mentioned at the top of the video and throughout the video, if you're able to find those ahead of time, it makes this process a lot easier and a lot faster. You can kind of fly through this once you understand and know what your selections will be. So you can see we're going to search for operations. We can see our operations manager demo was created, and we are good to go. So that was it. That's how you create it, and it is now done. So these particular users that we selected, we just selected some random users here. They currently have access to all of these reports with the criteria values that we selected. So if you do have questions about which criteria values you need to know, or what selections to make for which common sets, we actually have that documented on the user documentation site as well. If you have questions about this process, the operations manager templated role, or anything that I didn't address in this video, feel free to reach out to our support team, support@opsinsights.com, and we look forward to hearing from you.